Hello and welcome to Religious Studies 361. This is our second session of this thematic block about religion, ethics, and the economy. In the first session, we discussed the meaning of religion versus materialism and the implications of being a true materialistic thinker, an atheistic thinker. Today, we are going to briefly review Christian theology, just a very brief overview of Christian theology and history of the Christian church. Again, as a preparation for our future discussion of Max Weber's work, The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. Most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the history of Christianity and some basic concepts. But I'm not going to assume that you are, since we may have people coming from different traditions who may not be really knowledgeable about the Christian tradition. Therefore, I'm going to offer the discussion of the basics of that tradition in here today. The Christian tradition goes back to the time of Jesus. That's about 2,000 years ago. And the followers of Jesus organize themselves in the form of a community. That's the original meaning of the word church, community, along a three-level hierarchy with bishops on top. The word bishop comes from Greek biskop, which means supervisor. Scope being the same root you have in telescope, microscope, has to do with seeing something. The next level were the presbyteroi in the Greek, which is where you get the word priest, the elders. And the third level was that of the deacons or helpers. So that's how the church, the community was organized from early times. Okay. Now I have to say that for the first 2.5 centuries or so, there was a diversity of beliefs among the early Christians. It wasn't clear that everyone believed that Jesus was God or the Son of God. Some people believed there were 3 gods, others believed there were 30 gods, or just one God, or that Jesus was not really God, but a man chosen by God, stuff like this. Okay, so there was quite a diversity of beliefs. Eventually, through a number of councils or meetings of all of the bishops, or many of the bishops of the church, a consensus was reached as to a number of important issues. For example, the Trinitarian nature of God, that God is a Trinity, it's one God, but that God is made up, so to say, of 3 persons, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That Jesus was both truly human, and as such, he could suffer illness and physical pain like everyone else, and anguish, and at the same time, truly God. So both natures were subsumed in the person of Jesus, and a number of other important issues like that. Okay, Christianity stopped being persecuted in the Roman Empire and became legal after the year 313. The year 313, when Emperor Constantine gave this so-called Edict of Milan. Or Edict of Toleration, Milan, and as in the Italian city of Milan, Edict of Milan, or Edict of Toleration, making the practice of Christianity legal. So that's a key date in Christianity, 313. Later on, by the end of the 4th century, by the 380s or so, under another emperor called Theodosius, Christianity would become the state religion of the Roman Empire. Okay. Now, back in Constantine's time, the Roman Empire was huge. It encompassed, look at this map of Europe, it encompassed not just what is Italy, but the whole of today's Spain, France, Belgium, Romania, in England, and with today's Turkey and the Middle East here. All of that was the Roman Empire. Eventually, after Constantine, the Roman Empire would be divided into two sections, or two empires, so to say, two twin empires. The Western Empire, encompassing today's France, Spain, Italy, England, all this, and the Eastern Empire, encompassing Asia Minor, as Turkey was called, and Greece, and all this area here in Eastern Europe. And you will see that will have consequences in the history of Christianity later on. Initially, there were some splinter groups who did not agree on these issues that I just mentioned, whether Jesus was just human or divine or both. There were some groups that came to be called monophysites. Physite as in physics, physics meaning nature. Mono as in one, meaning those who believed that Jesus had only one nature, the divine nature. He couldn't be human. He was only God, and therefore he couldn't really die or suffer as a human because he was divine, he was God. Those splinter churches, those splinter communities still survive today in places like Syria and Egypt, and those are monophysite churches, the Coptic Church and other groups, very small, but still. But other than those small splinter groups, Christianity organized itself as a single body, a single community, ruled by the bishops, and with a prominent role among these bishops was the bishop of the city of Rome, that we call today the Pope. So the bishop of the city of Rome, or the Pope, is just one more bishop, but who claims to have special authority over the other bishops. Initially, it wasn't really a matter of special authority, but simply special moral authority was recognized in him, not actual legal authority. But so whenever there was some kind of a problem or a dilemma had to be resolved, other bishops would consult with him, not obey him, but consult with him. But in the long run, that ended up being turned into a claim to actual real authority over the other bishops. Why was that? Well, the claim was based on some gospel passages in which Jesus appears to confer special authority or special commitment on Peter, one of the bishops, one of the actual apostles, the companions of Jesus, telling him to take care of his flock. Then Peter went to Rome, and he became the first leader of the Roman Church, the first supervisor, biscop, the first bishop. And so the idea was that Peter's successors really had also inherited Jesus' command to lead the flock. So the Bishop of Rome had this special task to lead the flock. That was the claim. That's still the claim today for the papacy, okay? For the special authority of the Pope. Now, for the first 1,000 years, the church stayed as this single body, with the exception, as I said, of the splinter churches, the monophysites. But other than that, the whole of Europe was under the authority of the Pope. Now, I should say that the Roman Empire, the Western Roman Empire, collapsed under the invasions from the barbarians from Northern Europe. And so it turned into a mosaic of little kingdoms and principalities and feudal lordships all over Europe. But the Eastern Roman Empire remained a true empire with a true emperor for almost another 1,000 years. So the Western Roman Empire collapsed in the 5th century. The year 475 is given as the final for the Roman Empire, when the last Roman emperor fled Rome. But the Eastern Roman Empire remained alive for almost another 1,000 years. Okay? So what happened was that the Eastern Roman Empire had its capital in Constantinople, today's Istanbul, the capital of Turkey. The capital was created by Constantine in his own honor. It was named Constantinople, the city of Constantine. Okay? And that remained the actual capital of the empire for all this time. And of course, the bishops of Constantinople were the bishops of a true capital of an empire, and they had the backing and the support for their rulings of the emperor. They were the bishops of an important town, important capital, with the backing of the emperor. I mean, nothing more, nothing less than that. Okay, while the Bishop of Rome was the bishop of, excuse me, where? What is Rome? What means? It may have been a big city back in the past, but today, today, back in those times, what is Rome? It had collapsed. The whole Western Empire had collapsed under the barbarians. Rome was nothing. The Bishop of Rome, the Pope, was the only authority left in there, but with no backing of any armies or any emperor or anything. Okay? The Bishop of Rome had symbolically inherited the authority or the role of the emperors. And still, to this day, the Pope, in the way he dresses, reminds us very much of the way the Roman emperors dressed, right? With these white robes. That's a reminder of the ancient Roman emperors. Right? That's why the Pope still dresses like that. It's a tradition that really signifies the symbolic inheritance of the role of the emperor. Right? And so that created tensions for a time. How come that this bishop, with actual power and backing of the emperor, has to submit to the authority of this Bishop of Rome, who is the bishop of nowhere? I mean, Rome is nothing anymore. This created tensions. And these tensions came to a breaking point in the year 1054. 1054. There were these background political tensions, and these tensions were compounded eventually with a theological issue, the so-called Filioque clause. The Filioque clause. The Filioque clause. The word Filioque means and the Son. Filio in Latin means son, and the Son. And it refers to a discrepancy in the creed, that's a statement of faith, between the Eastern and the Western parts of the church. Originally, what the creed said was that in the Trinity, the Son and the Holy Spirit proceed from the Father. So there's this hierarchy, although in the case of God, the Son and the Holy Spirit, in Christian belief, are uncreated. They were never created. They were always there. But in a sense, however you want to understand it, proceed, come from, originate in the Father. So this was the idea, okay? You have the Father as being hierarchically more important. And from the Father proceed the Son and the Holy Spirit. However, that got changed to the idea that the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son, which is the creed you hear today in Catholic churches. So you have the Father and the Son, like on the same level, and from the Father and the Son proceeds the Holy Spirit. And this kind of upset the Eastern churches. No, that's not the way it's supposed to be. It is the Son and the Holy Spirit who proceed from the Father, not the Holy Spirit who proceeds from the Father and the Son, which is what you still have in the Roman Catholic Church. So over this discrepancy, the Filioque clause, the breakup took place. And so the Bishop of Rome excommunicated the Bishop of Constantinople, and the Bishop of Constantinople, in his turn, excommunicated the Bishop of Rome. Excommunication means expulsion from the church. You're no longer part of a church. You cannot go to heaven. You're outside the church. Okay? Those excommunications, by the way, were lifted by both the Pope and the Bishop of Rome in the 1960s under this ecumenical movement to unite all the Christian churches. So that's the first breakup we find in the Christian church. After that time, we start talking about the Western church and calling it the Catholic Church, and the Eastern Church and calling it the Orthodox Church. Now, the Western Church remained and remains under the authority of the Pope,